All right, guys, welcome to another episode of the Strongfit podcast.
Who is it sponsored by this week? Whiskey?
Whiskey. Yeah, I had Levy. We just did so Johnny Black Label passed me the bottle because it's delicious. Yeah. And listen, Johnny.
Right, so Levy is, explain who Levy is.
So Levy is the Glory kickboxer. There should be an episode coming out with him soon, if not before this one, but maybe afterwards. But he just won his tournament, first Glory fights. He's got ranked number 4 now in Glory, which is awesome. And that was my present from him to me.
I watched it live. He did really well.
Very good. It was awesome. This week, Coach, what are we getting into? We're going to be getting into attention and perception. Perception and attention.
Yeah, a bit more than that. This is about the right. So this is to follow all the hierarchies of the system I've been talking about and all that stuff, interoception, so the predictive coding and everything, and how there's a pattern that I see emerging that I find very interesting. And if we look at perception and attention, we can push it all the way to sympathetic fixes, but also to how we train. So I thought that was really interesting. It's been, simmering in my head for a while now, and I think I have a cool idea as to what it means, and also for the amygdala, which might be a Julian's Corner podcast, but what fear is in that sense, like the importance of fear in training and what we do and all that stuff. So we can start with perception and attention.
Okay.
Which I think is very important. So we have the wrong idea of perception and attention, what it means. Like most people, if you say perception, I look at the bicycle over there and I see the bicycle. And actually, that's not true. That's not what perception is. The game is not that. The game is why am I seeing what I'm seeing always. It's always because it's prediction versus observation. Right. So the idea is always an inference of the perception of things, of the why I am perceiving this, because I need to predict what happens next based on what I see.
Right.
So if you look at the game in a sense, imagine you have a projector and then you have a model here where you're trying to fit like a round into a round square or a square into, but then you have a projection on a screen.
Yeah.
Right. What perception is really, it's not about what's on the screen. It's about what's making the shape that is going to be projected onto the screen.
Okay.
So whenever you look at a stuff, you see, for example, a square in a circle or whatever.
Right.
What you're doing is you're looking at the square in a circle, going like, how come it's a square in a circle and not a circle in a square, or a square in a square, or a circle in a circle?
So trying to figure out the pattern.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's really what this is. That's what perception is why is there something on the screen? But in a way, the screen itself has relatively no importance.
Okay.
That's not
the point of it.
Yeah, the prediction is always to understand, because the point is to understand why there is something being projected on the screen anyway, because that's how you would be able to, you'd be more efficient defending against that if you know why it happens than if you just react to it.
Right.
So it goes back to the idea that the system is not predictive. Is predictive, not reactive.
Right. Okay.
Right. So that means that all the idea of perception is based on how come there's something being projected on the screen. So we all think we focus on what's on the screen.
Right.
We're trying to be present and understand what we see. We cannot.
Okay.
So that was one of the podcasts I was doing. I was explaining like what we do is we create a number of representation, number of universes.
Right.
And we try to match that universe with the universe that is the closest to the universe we live in.
Okay.
But that means that you never live in a universe.
Right.
You live in a universe you created to fit the closest possible the universe that actually exists.
Right. Perception is reality.
Exactly. So you live in one step out of the universe. You live in your representation of the universe, never in actually the universe.
Okay. So then how does perception have to do with attention?
Right. So attention is a searchlight, is a spotlight that you put on something. So you put energy toward that particular space to determine how precise you are in your perception of the thing. So, for example, let's say I'm actually doing good. I have a circle in a circle. Okay, but how big is a circle within the circle? Is it touching? Does it fit perfectly?
Right.
Or is there a gap?
Right.
If I'm on that, I need to put a spotlight and I need to look closer and closer and put more energy going like, well, how precise am I exactly within this? Can I make it better?
Right.
Is it getting worse? That's what attention is for, is to direct energy toward understanding, toward have a better precision of that perception. Just like a spotlight is, what you would do with a flashlight.
Okay.
So you'll notice that when you have a flashlight, you can't see anything else on the side.
Right.
Right, because all your attention is focused on where the light is.
Yeah. Right.
So there's actually a game that being played there where you should be able to see what's out there, but you can't. It's not necessarily light-based, it's actually attention-based.
Right, but so then that could lead to problems with people that have a short attention span on things. So
For example,
how would that start to correlate with all this? Does that mean the perception then is then all over the place and you're never
Right. So it's a matter of energy that you put toward the preciseness, right? So
Okay.
either like short attention span was like, oh yeah, I'm cool.
right?
I've spent enough energy on that thing. Like there is not, even though the need is there is not energy being spent as to really paying attention to the pattern itself.
Right. So
Like-
being present.
Right, because you're safe. You're so safe. So that relates to, we can go into that right now.
Yeah.
That relates to another, so with the concept of the hierarchies, if you look, the lower hierarchies are on an automated level, an unconscious
Right.
level. Why? Because I can't spend energy thinking about how this fits under my butt right now. Because if
Right.
I do, how much attention can I pay to this and then my clothes and then the wind or the
And
sound or this? Like, you will never be able to pay attention to the bear coming at you. At some point, you have to have a system that prioritizes what to
Where
put
the
on the
attention needs to be
forefront
on,
and
yeah.
everything. So you have to understand that what we call being present, conscious decision is a fraction of all the input that you receive.
That's coming
A
in.
very,
Right.
very small fraction. And we decide where we put that consciousness.
Okay.
And as I'll explain, it's actually the amygdala that seems to be doing that. Anyway, so there's certain things I can't pay attention to because it's fine.
Right.
I'm on my bicycle. I know what the seat feels like. Unless it's starting to do damage, I'm like, yeah, it's cool.
Right.
It's all good.
You're good.
Yeah, because I've done that so many times, right? So it's automated, it's unconscious, right? So attention is being able to bring something to the forefront,
Okay.
to the consciousness level, right? So if I am in a life that is continually soft, right, where nothing can threaten me, I'm going to put more and more and more things in automation
Right.
in a conscious level because I don't need to
Stress about it.
stress about it. Therefore, I don't need to put energy toward
Right.
it.
I mean,
Therefore, I don't need to pay
even
attention.
like I remember driving to go see you,
Right.
and I was so automated on those morning drives because there weren't that many people because it was
Yeah.
like at 5 a.m.
Right.
And I would sometimes I would zone out and I'd show
Yeah.
up at your place. I was like, what the fuck just happened?
Did I just lose an
How-
hour?
Yeah, how did it
exactly.
go?
Right,
Yeah.
right. Because not the best idea, but
Right.
the
Then it
level of
became
fear went
went
so,
so far away.
out
Right.
that you just put it on automated
Yeah.
until there's an asshole that cuts you off, and then you
Right.
remember it's dangerous, and then
Right.
you're back to being in a more conscious level. So in the hierarchies, you actually see that on the fifth hierarchy, which is the amygdala. The amygdala actually connects to the part of the brain that is consciousness, but also down
To the
toward the observation
automated.
from the body and actually sideways in different stuff. So the
Okay.
amygdala's job seems to be, they say it's a center of fear, but it seems that's a side effect of what the amygdala really is.
Okay.
It's a byproduct of what the amygdala really is for. It
So
seems that
fear is a byproduct.
fear is a byproduct. Because they say it's a center of fear. Yeah, it's true. Amygdala is a center of fear, but that's a byproduct of the true nature of the amygdala.
Okay.
The amygdala is to bring things to consciousness.
To consciousness.
Right. And what brings things to consciousness? Fear.
Fear. But now can we talk about fear being
A function.
a function, not a negative
Exactly.
connotation of being afraid
Right.
of something?
Exactly. So fear in that sense, instead of, as you say, like a negative aspect, would be just bringing something to consciousness.
Okay.
Because fear, think at it negatively, but caution
Right.
also
Yeah.
is is a part of fear. But caution is not bad. So there is no good and bad as usual. So people take fear because that's extreme caution.
Right.
That's when you go,
Yeah.
and everything. Like I'm sure you're very alive when you do a bungee jump.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know because I'm not doing it.
We should one day. We have
that's another
Alex right
problem.
here.
That's another problem.
One day, Alex, we will
Exactly,
make it
yeah,
happen.
There's going to be a lot of amygdala that day, that's for sure. But so you could see at caution, just like you remember boredom, this level.
Yeah.
If you look at caution and fear, it's the same thing,
It's the
right?
same
It's
thing.
just something being brought to the forefront. Right, but there's a cost to that.
To that.
If I bring that, that means I don't bring something else. You have to choose. That's where attention comes in.
Right.
You have to choose what you're going to bring to consciousness, because usually, how many things can you pay attention to at the same time?
Right.
Not that many. Right?
Otherwise,
Most
it
of
become
the stuff.
overwhelming, and then they
Right,
still get
and that's
disregarded.
exactly. So that's the thing, is the body decides just, all right, what do I need to pay attention to in order to survive today and tomorrow?
Right.
And then a year from now, whatever, but then you go higher and higher in the perception, in the hierarchies, where the further in the future I think, the higher I go in the hierarchies.
Right.
And the fifth is that the one going like, okay, we're going to think a year from now, but in the meantime, I need to survive right now.
Right.
And so that's what the amygdala does, is like, can I go?
Starts to
over there.
prioritize what needs, where
Exactly,
the
what
attention
needs
needs to go.
And it's always timeline. And so there
Okay.
is that idea of that also, is like caution, whatever that function of, deal with this right now.
Yeah.
I understand there's a here for now, but that needs to be dealt with.
Right.
That's what the amygdala is like, no, here. And that's why the attention is directed toward you do that. So you can see that on a sandbag. You're fine, you're not. You get freaked out, your attention goes to here. And then because you're paying attention to the sandbag, external torque. Now, why?
Right.
And that's where I think I have the reason.
Talk to me.
Yeah, exactly. So let's go back to nervous system real quick. Parasympathetic, sympathetic. We say fight and flight and everything. I think fundamentally we misunderstand. I think the difference is sympathetic is the outside world. Parasympathetic is the inside world. So the idea would be I'm toward the flow. I pay attention to myself. I'm present within myself.
Right.
What do we call a flow?
Fully present. Yeah.
Yeah, fully present within the flow. If I go sympathetic, I go being aware of what is outside of me.
Okay.
Right. So depending on where you put the attention, you put attention more toward yourself or more toward the outside world.
Right.
So where it becomes interesting is look at internal torque versus external torque.
Yeah.
Right. So that means that someone that is on the sympathetic side that is trying to put, for example, even because if you look, let me go back. Internal torque, external torque. We saw like body weight movement. A lot of them are in internal torque. Right. And if we go explosive, it's more external torque. So we look at running.
Yeah.
Sprinting, internal torque. That would mean that the focus is on yourself, moving yourself.
Moving. Yeah.
Right. But let's say you're on the sympathetic side. But that means that your focus, instead of moving yourself, would be more toward the outside world. So, for example, it would be hitting the ground of the track, instead of running fast, which is what we saw with Janina.
Yeah.
When she was stressed out or whatever, what does she do? She focused on hitting the track, not sprinting.
Yeah, exactly.
Hitting the track. So we see that people doing pull-ups. Instead of moving themselves toward the bar, what do? They pull the bar down.
Right.
And now they go in external torque. So you see that on gymnastic movements all the time, where they're supposed to go in internal torque, but because they're stressed out. And so what they do is instead of moving themselves, they start to move the ground.
Yeah, okay.
The outside world instead. So they don't move themselves, they move the outside world. So there's a control of the world right there that we see in external torque as well.
And in the coaching world, you always try to get people to move things that's not themselves. So you always get the outside
So you put them in external torque all the time, which is what we saw in CrossFit. That's interesting, isn't it? Right. So you see the idea there. So where you put the attention will decide in a way the type of torque chains that you're going to use.
Right.
So if you put your attention toward the world, you'll go towards external torque.
Okay.
So if we want people to move in internal torque, that means the attention has to be toward themselves.
Which is the oblique opener, the psoas raise, everything that we do. It's about focusing on you.
You first. But people that can't, what do? They move the kettlebell.
Right.
And then right away, they do the movement incorrectly and go in external torque.
Right.
Because they're focusing on the kettlebell instead of focusing on moving themselves.
Right.
Right. So you could keep on pushing this further and further, because the idea is to be present, so to have caution, but to know where to direct the energy properly.
Okay.
So imagine that someone that goes continuously toward the sympathetic, that means that they would want to live in a world where the attention is continuously based on the outside.
Right.
So to feed that, they need to feed the sympathetic. And that's where I think the sympathetic fixes come in. Because it's their vision of the world that makes them crave the carbs. So you're bored, you want an interaction with the world, you crave carbs because you want to go sympathetic. That allows you to pay attention to the world. And you could see how that wheel could start turning right away.
Right. So now could that be, but if you were to look at it as a sympathetic fix, let's say like smoking weed, that allows you to go super, well, maybe not.
Toward the inside.
Right.
Yeah. But it would be more directing toward yourself. After, remember, the automation versus consciousness comes in. So do you smoke weed to calm yourself down so everything goes back to automation and you don't have, to automation?
Yeah.
Do you smoke weed so you start being cautious, fearful of the world? It zones you out. It takes away the sympathetic. It zones you out so that everything can go back in automation.
Right.
So that you don't have to be present within yourself, within your own problems.
Right.
Because maybe you don't want to be within yourself for issues that you have or stuff like that.
Right.
So you could see how weed could be a fix.
So it'd still be treating yourself as an object, not a subject.
Exactly. Right, because you are avoiding...
Which, by the way, I just saw somewhere that said, don't look at yourself like as a subject, be an object. I'll find it. I was like, that's not good.
That's weird. Somebody always follows our stuff by a few weeks. It's kind of interesting.
Anywho.
But you could see how, not a sympathetic, like a parasympathetic fix could be, I am cautious, fearful about trauma or whatever, that every time I look within myself, I have that feeling of cautiousness, like I don't want to say fear because that's a negative, but
it's-
of being brought to the forefront that there is an issue.
Right.
That scares me, that, and boom, puts me
Takes you
back
back.
into sympathetic, which is toward the world and everything, which means I can be within myself. Eventually, it gets to me.
Right.
So I smoke weed. I reduce the sympathetic. I am not fearful anymore. I put everything in automation. I can finally be with myself without actually addressing the problem.
Right. So that's like the people that are constantly doing yoga and breath work and all this without
Exactly.
actually
Exactly.
going to the
They
other
are
side.
avoiding the issue.
sympathetic, yeah.
Right.
Okay.
But the issue cannot go away because the problem is every time you look inside, you see a problem that you're
Right.
not fixing that drives you towards sympathetic. So what do? You remove the sympathetic.
Yeah.
No, you fix the problem. Right.
Right.
So you could see how they could use that.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So
Okay.
that's where attention. But so what I found so interesting with this, I mean, there's so many,
Side,
this goes
it's
in
a
so many
spi-
rabbit
it's a
holes.
spider web, yeah.
so many rabbit holes. But the idea would be like, in order for you to move in internal torque properly, you would have to focus the attention within yourself.
Right.
Right. So if you're fearful about yourself, about what you find when you look in, then you can't be in internal torque.
You'll push out. Yeah. Well, that's
Emotional mapping.
and you see that right away with people on the sleds with Burn the Questions.
Right.
As soon as you have them, like, it's a very, maybe not a dark, it's a dark place, but
Oh, it can be.
it fuels great
Yeah.
things, right? And so whenever you're pushing the sled, like you do look internally to push
To go
forward.
further because you
Yeah.
want to quit. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's interesting now you say that because then you can see right away. And again, this is stuff that I always perceive when I'm watching people through the face and everything. They start to go into that like hopping where they go immediately to
yeah.
external,
Looking out.
or
Yeah.
they start to hit the ground,
Yeah.
which is not them. They try to show you that they're trying to be there,
Right.
but they're not.
What do? They hit we've
They
seen
hit
that
the
so many
ground,
times. They hit the ground like crazy.
And they're almost like
First
pouncing.
thing Janina did.
Yeah.
She was hitting the ground. And I'm like, stop hitting the ground, move the fucking sled.
Right.
But to move faster, you have to move faster. And instead, they either do weird stuff with the sled,
Yeah.
trying to push it, or they hit the ground.
Yeah.
What they're not doing
Is
is moving themselves.
Yeah. Exactly.
which requires the internal
Power,
torque.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And then they go outside.
So
See
the
what I mean?
falsification is still there.
Exactly. And I think that's why sometimes we see them when they go back. That's not internal torque, can't you see?
Right.
It's because they can't, because they're moving the handles, they're moving the dumbbell, they're moving. It's
everything
always
towards
moving
outside
the world.
Yeah. Right.
And that's what you see with sympathetic fixes, with the food and stuff. Those are people that just want to move the world because they cannot move themselves
Right.
for whatever
For
reason,
whatever
but
reason.
they cannot look in.
Yeah. It's the people that keep getting stuck in they falsify their progression
Yeah.
or they falsify their evolution through progression.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Right. So now they have steps
Yeah.
that they can follow. Now they have a
And
plan.
then they have
Now I did what you say. And what you say is to have a position
right.
over tension.
Yeah.
Because they achieved the position, they changed the world. And you're like, but that's external torque. That's not what I'm asking
I
you to
asked
do.
you to change you.
Right, exactly. So that when you have, what can you do external torque? You're going to have to jump, but you jump when you aim at
Right.
the box because you're not jumping, you're clearing the box.
Yeah.
You're lifting the barbell, you're doing that. So
Interesting.
when you do body weight movement, that'd be the problem, is you stop pulling the bar toward you.
Right.
Because then you'll go like this too. If you're not just like
Yeah.
right away, you go here, you go external torque. As gymnast would be.
But-
So if you can forget that there is a bar, then you can do a proper pull-up in internal torque.
Right. Kind of like the Matrix. The spoon is not bending.
There is no spoon.
There is no
It is
spoon.
you that bends. But I realize
Yeah.
that when I'm doing kickboxing, like, so we were talking about this, like I'm
Mhm.
more internal torque, you'll always be more external torque. Like you move the sandbag, you do the stuff.
Yeah.
I don't work like that. So when I do kickboxing, I'm always doing better when Paul is not holding the stuff. I just go through him.
Right.
I don't hit the bag, I go through him.
Yeah.
So like he's not there. So I go as hard as I can and try, but I'm not kicking here, I'm kicking there. So like he's not there.
right.
And when I do that, technically, it flows. I'm much faster and I hit much harder
right.
because he's not there. Because I'm just moving me,
Right.
as you said. Like
But
there is no spoon.
Yeah. Exactly.
It is you that bends. When I do that, I can be in internal torque properly. So that is the thing. Internal torque, external torque is there is no spoon versus bend the spoon.
Versus bend the spoon. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fucking awesome.
Right.
I like it.
And what I found interesting with this was that fist at the amygdala stuff is the fear as a function
Right.
of just bringing things to consciousness. But then once you bring it into consciousness, does that lead you to, so where do you apply the consciousness? To yourself or to the world?
Right.
So it seems like, the amygdala goes, hey, I need to pay attention to this. We need to be more precise in how we handle this. Okay, but then from there, where do I spend the energy? Is it toward the world or is it toward the inside world. So outside world or inside world.
Right.
And that would be the key. And so
So
most people fear condition because they're soft.
And they go
outside
back.
world.
Right. So and that's when you no longer start. That's when you no longer continue to work on the skill,
Right.
if you will. Right. So then you get good enough to falsify everything else that's happening within
That's a very good
that
point,
field that you're in.
So if you're soft, your good enough is low.
Right.
Because you're not fearful. You're not cautious enough about the world.
Right.
The second you hurt yourself, you go, fuck, I need to get a lot better.
Yeah.
But so the better you are than athletes, the more you can ingest fear and turn something positive out of it.
Right.
You see that with the great athletes. They have 50,000 people. It fuels them instead of putting them into freeze. So a great athlete could ingest that cautiousness. We're going to have to come up with another word than fear. That cautiousness and allow it to fuel the attention toward himself to move better.
Right.
But if you were soft and that intensity scares you, right away you're going to try changing the world and then you can't move yourself anymore. But you could see with someone, so going back to skill, automation versus stuff. So you work on the skill until it becomes automated. But when does it become automated? The amygdala is going to decide that. So cautiousness, because of that, a great athlete knows like, oh no, I need to lift a lot heavier. At 200 kilos, it becomes dangerous. So I need to work well. Well, someone will be happy about where their skill is at earlier and therefore stop progressing. So because they cannot pay attention anymore to the skill because it's already automated, because in their mind, like, I'm cool.
We're good,
it's not dangerous anymore. To me, I do not need to pay attention. And so that's why they stop working on the skill.
Now, it's not dangerous anymore, or is it this is becoming too dangerous? Because I've met a lot of people that are extremely smart and brilliant, and as soon as maybe the cautiousness that they know that they're at this level, they're safe, if you will, and going any further requires a big jump. So like us doing the seminars, like that required a big jump from both of us.
Yeah.
Right. So some people have been like, nah, I'm good. Right.
But is it the divided brain refusing to spend energy?
Right.
Okay, so we go back to attention. Is where stress is a demand toward expenditure of energy.
Right.
Right. So is it the divided brain going like, well, I don't want to spend energy there.
I'm safe.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm safe. Well,
right.
But look at it. So we were talking before the podcast, a very interesting part. Aira is training right now. She's doing Kylie Jenner's leg workout.
Right. Awesome.
Do you understand that this is everything in life that could go wrong just went wrong, basically? Like,
I mean, like, I would even put Kylie Jenner a level below Jillian Michaels. I mean, I don't want to. We could probably beat that out, but like, it's like, come on, Jesus.
No, but look, okay.
Like, how did she even come up with a leg program? Like, she's not even like.
I'm not even sure it's hers. It's probably someone who used her name or whatever. But so I'm asking Aira because I'm like, you have me. I understand I'm your father, but still, I'm like. All right, so you have me. Janina is right there. Her legs are.
We have coaches in the mentoring program. There's people around. Right. There can always be somebody.
And you doing Kylie Jenner's leg workout. I'm curious. Would you explain to me, please, why? And then we go into the reasons into it. It's like, and a lot of it is targeted burn.
Okay.
Where I want it to be. I'm like, all right, but again, Janina is right there. She's doing sprint. You see her legs. You see like how she shapes. She's very lean. She has a spec. Oh yeah, but that's exhausting. I'm like, okay, sure. It's like, but why would you follow that program? Well, I read the reviews and they tell me it works. And I'm like, this is so wrong on so many levels.
This is
like
where
I was losing my shit.
That's all we have to do. Coaches say it works.
Yeah.
Just make up reviews. It works.
I decided that whenever people send us nice emails, we're going to start posting this because apparently it works.
It works.
Obviously, it works. And so we go to stop. But basically, it's a 10-minute workout that she can do more. But then she gets to be in her room, and then she kind of like Kylie Jenner's legs, and then know it's that reassuring stuff aspect of this is as far as I want to go. It's not like I want to, and then she's like, well, I'm afraid of getting too much muscle and everything. Like like every single bullshit I've ever heard.
Yeah, all of it.
15 minutes straight from my own daughter, non-stop. And
we should have done a lactate test at that one. That would have been a good lactate test.
I'm at dinner looking at her, and I'm like, Like, when the world turned into the worst possible version of itself in front of your eyes and you go, this is my life now. Like, if there is a God, he has a wicked sense of humor, I'm just saying. And I'm listening to all the reasons as to why I hate the internet, basically coming from my daughter. But if you look at it, there was I don't want to go there.
Right.
That's the conversation.
That's crazy. Yeah.
Janina, at not even Yaya's age, at 14, was taking the train to Rotterdam every day to blast herself doing sprinting. And she's like, well, yeah. And here comes Yaya, doesn't want to leave her room to do the training session.
Right.
Not even go run with Janina in the streets. It's like, no, but I have targeted burns. I feel my inner leg. You know what I mean? Like
I love it, but I love how good it's selling. Like there's targeted burn, guys. You're going to be feeling the muscles burn.
And there is review saying it works.
It works. That muscle did burn.
Right, but I was asking her, I said, but is that the point? She's like, well, yeah, I want to make sure it works. So look at the difference. I need the proof this second.
Right.
Not 6 months from now. This
Right.
second that what I do targets exactly what I want right now.
Yeah.
Versus a athlete who went, I'm going to put the work now going to Rotterdam, yeah, so that 3 months from now I can win a race.
Right.
That's the difference. Is that right now decided through fear and anxiety and stuff like that versus being capable to go on the long run. And that's where attention is the difference.
I mean, that's where we see most of the clients in the PT world, right? They always come in and they want the instant relief.
My shoulder has to be fixed right now.
Walking out the door, it should be feeling better, which is what they do.
Right.
And then
but even
worse.
if it comes back 2 hours later or the next day, it doesn't matter because I can always come back because you proved to me that in this second it works.
Right.
So that's
it allows
fear.
you to just put it in an automation system aspect, right? So
so what you do now is you put the fear of your shoulder being hurt in an automated because you can always fix it, which is complete bullshit because that means the problem never leaves away. So that's the worst thing you can do.
Right.
By going to a very short-term part of the hierarchy that allows you to fool yourself.
Right.
Because you put it on automated. It's a bit like the same thing as you did on the driving, thinking I'm fine.
I'm fine, yeah.
No, you're not.
Right.
You're still on a freeway. you should never be fine on a freeway.
Especially in Los Angeles.
Right, exactly. Like people are going to accelerate on straight lines. So you're never fine. But so that's what they do with our shoulders.
Right.
They go, everything is fine.
Remember we were talking, this was during the first ever apprenticeship month, and you were talking about the reptilian brain. So does this tie into the reptilian brain? And
Right. Well, yeah, because again, like if you look at what is evolution wanting for us? Ventral vagus nerve, parasympathetic side. It wants us to be able to pay attention to ourselves more and more, to have our consciousness toward how we feel. Why? Because in a society it's necessary. Whenever you do something, I need to be able to think, well, what do I think about this instead of just reacting and killing the person in front of me. So there's an entire thing there. To live in groups, that's very necessary. And that's where the evolution is. But the first level, so the first level means the faster reaction level is still toward that.
Right.
It's always going to be towards sympathetic before you can go into flow. It's a normal thing. So first you'll try to reason to yourself and everything. Go ahead. The second it doesn't work,
you go out.
There.
Okay.
So you do 2-3 times, like you do this, my shoulder doesn't feel better right away, but he makes it feel better right away. So you could see if your mindset was a bit more short-minded, you go like, well, he made me feel better right away. I'm going to stick with that. Because now I can look in and go, I don't have to be so afraid anymore.
Right.
Because you're lacking the capacity.
Because you're looking for that safety.
Exactly, because you're looking at it wrong. It's still coming from a fearful decision.
Right.
Instead of being able to, we talked about the hierarchy, which is what do I gain from this? Being able to detach yourself from that automation of your first response to be able to make a long-term decision.
Right.
Because obviously Yaya's decision is not long-term based on what I make her do.
It's just a short-term reward, nonstop.
Exactly. Right. But that requires that hierarchy that takes away. But to do that, if we looked at the hierarchy, it is not linked directly to the interoception of the body that directs you to, hey, pay attention to me right now.
Right.
That's what we're building evolutionary-wise, is the capacity to go like, I understand that this is happening, but I still need to think long-term. And that's what they cannot do.
Right.
And that's the whole default mode network and all that stuff comes into it. Bias.
Everything.
The whole thing comes in. But you could see where that short-term stuff is. So it's attention placed incorrectly, basically.
Right.
Attention being the amount of energy that you put. So that energy toward the internal torque, but toward moving yourself and not the object, is such an important part. So that's yoga in a way.
Right.
Except at a low intensity. They don't spend enough energy on that. That's why we find that the carries are better, because you have to so do the carries,
there needs to be a balance
yourself.
between
there needs
both.
to be a balance.
For sure.
So when you do the carries, you can't just carry the handle.
Right.
You also have to move yourself.
Right.
So look at my problem always was very good at technique, not good in competition. Why? Because I have to deal with a guy.
Right.
And I like to pretend he's not there.
Yeah.
That's my lack of balance.
Right.
But if you're a competitor and you only think about the guy, then technically you're always going to suffer because you never have the creativity to come with crazy stuff because you never look inside.
Right.
So you lack the balance that way. Or in the case of a Gemini, you hit the ground too hard.
Right.
Instead of moving yourself. Me, I move myself too much. I don't hit the ground enough.
Never enough. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So when we look at body weight movement now,
Then
we can look at it differently. Yeah. Are you moving the bar or are you going toward the bar?
Right.
That's an interesting idea.
I think like as a coach, it's a great way because you can see exactly where your clients, where their fear may lie, right? And how they're treating themselves.
Right. And we've seen like with the shoulder that we'll do a program toward that, but that internal torque necessary even in external rotation. Like if you always bend the bar, you're always in external rotation, but external torque. So then shoulder pain, then traps all the time.
Well, we've had people, I mean, in the seminar where you're like, bend the bar, and they're like, what do you mean bend the bar?
But they actually could not do that, which was just bend the fucking PVC pipe.
Yeah.
Take it, bend it.
And
people could not do it. They were doing this shit, but they could not bend
the bar.
Yeah, because they were so going into their it's about me, or it's my fault or whatever, that it's a fucked up relationship where they can't change the world anymore. They just can just blend themselves. You could see how it would lead to some dead ends really fast.
And so speaking outside of training, you see it within certain, behaviors like eating disorders, things like that.
So eating disorder, we know it's a problem with interoception. What is interoception? The capacity to listen to yourself. So body as an object.
Right.
So body as an object it would drive you directly to sympathetic fixes. Right. Why? Because it's about the outside world. So now you treat you as part of the outside world.
Right.
That'd be fucked up.
Yeah.
That's exactly what you see. People that can only see themselves in a mirror.
Right.
They have no conception of themselves. They can only see the image in a mirror.
Right.
That's the body as an object.
And even when they look at themselves in the mirror, though, they see it's the distorted view, right? So it's
always
it's a crazy,
because perception is reality.
Right.
So all you see is the world.
Yeah.
So you never see you. Even when you look in the mirror, all you see is the world.
Right.
And that's the fundamental of all eating disorders.
Right.
And so you could see a sympathetic fix would come in to do more of that.
Right.
I need to pay attention to the world. That's sympathetic. That's carbs. That's
which is and the running, the constant like overtraining would still,
for example, going the other way and the
six
pack and the dysmorphia and everything is because you are never looking inside. Even though you're looking in the mirror, you're looking out, never in. Yeah. And then that would be so. If you were to approach the world like that, you would just be addicted to carbs and coffee, everything, just so that you never have to look within yourself, which I was guilty of, obviously, especially with the autism stuff and all the stuff to deal with. And so the easiest way is just look outside, look in the mirror instead of looking inside.
That's crazy.
And then that would bring, by the way, again, sympathetic fixes, we know, attune the senses.
Yeah.
But that's there's the amygdala, bringing not fear, but like that concept of pay attention to this because it can be dangerous or whatever. And the senses are more attuned and everything. Yeah, because you're looking outside.
Out every time.
Which is what the senses are for.
Yeah.
Instead of being able to look in.
I like it. And I'm gonna need to process this one. I'm sure that you guys will too. There's a lot to process there, but it's a really cool concept because it goes back. I mean, even dealing with people that come to see us that have had shoulder pain for the last 10 years or back pain.
And
and when you have those conversations, like, oh no, I don't. And then when you have the conversation, they're like, well, it's not really painful. And you're like, well, you've gotten so used to that pain that it just starts to become safer and safer to be in that pain, right? It's a victim
put it in
mentality.
automated. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But because somewhere it's necessary so you can pay attention to something else.
Right.
And again, the system is not built on what you see.
Right.
It's built on the inference, on the causality. So that means that if you have the same pain all the time, but you don't die from it, the system will go, oh, fuck it, I'll put it in the back.
Yeah. That's my arm, like all this is always just constantly numb, like pins and needles. And
so you don't feel it.
Like after 6 months, like I was just like, I can't, you just stop fucking feeling it. But then like I'll do certain things. I was like, ooh,
oh, by the way,
what's going on here?
But that's only when you feel it a bit more. And nobody's like, are we sure? And then over time, you'll be like, yeah, I'm sure. But then you never deal with it. Because if you have it long enough,
then it becomes...
Because you don't care. Because that's not what the body does. The body only cares to know as to why pins and needles. In your mind, you're like, well, I had an accident. Everything is broken. There's nothing I can do with it. Goes in the bag.
Right.
Maybe that's true. Yeah. But what if it isn't? Yeah. And in your case, it's broken, so it is. But to some people, they're broken mentally and they go, oh, fuck it, it'll always be that way. That's the problem with it's always going to be that way, is that you put it in a bag in automation, and then you'll never pay attention to it ever again.
Basically keeps building into that soft tissue or that structural damage.
Yeah, because now it's part of your system. Because you put it in the bag, and now the body's like, it's integrated.
Right.
It's not this. It can be repressed or integrated, but both cases,
happens,
it's not
yeah.
come. You cannot
It
have
becomes the norm.
conscious. Exactly. So now you don't have a conscious control over it
Right.
anymore. It's a new norm. It's a new normal, and you're
Right.
and so now you deal with it, and you compensate, and then you start pressing like this, and you're like, but I'm
Yeah.
fine. Well, yeah, because your entire system
Body,
actually
yeah.
sees you straight. Because remember, he never sees what's on the
Right.
screen. He only sees the causality.
The
of it.
causality, yeah. Yeah, that's like when we're ever working with people and they're shifting completely to one side and you're like, nope, this is straight. And they're like, no,
No,
this
it
is
is
not.
not. Yeah.
This feels really weird.
But that's when you see the video and you go, is that what I look like?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Because your new norm has shifted so much, you can't tell the difference anymore. Because that's how the system works. He only cares that you survive whatever the fuck is happening next
Right.
first. That's the first level. He's going to make sure we stay alive. And then you start
And then we
building
start
up from
building
there.
up from there.
But the problem is, what do you bring to the consciousness or not? So attention is the key.
That's one
And
of
the second, when you start putting stuff in the back, it gets harder and harder to bring them back
Right.
up to consciousness. That's why trauma can be buried, and
And then,
you're like,
yeah.
what do you mean?
yeah, that explains so much of the emotional mapping. Just
Exactly.
like the muscles being turned off where people just
It's
aren't
like, what
working
do you
on
mean?
them.
Yeah, they worked around
Yeah.
this, like, but no, it's not.
Right.
I don't feel any different. Right, because you've adjusted,
Yeah.
but to a completely crooked reality. But to the point where, because there is no crooked reality. There is
Right.
only the universe that you live in, which is not the universe that exists. It's the one that is the closest to the one that exists.
Right.
And so every time you can
It's-
shift to one further and further and further, but it doesn't matter. That's the universe you live in. You live in a universe you create, not in the universe that exists.
Right. And so people wanting to change that universe, what would be your suggestion?
So that means we're not going to use the term fear, but all that stuff has to be brought back to consciousness so we can deal with it. So
Right.
that means all that stuff has to be, it has to be like, this is wrong.
Has to be expressed in some way.
And but
Internally
also,
out.
right, but also you have to realize that whatever the thing is wrong.
Right.
Not bad, but just like there is an issue that needs to be dealt with. Like we have, oh, my pec doesn't hurt, really? And then we put them through and they go like, yeah, okay. Or
Right.
like, the trauma suddenly, oh, I didn't realize I held on to it or stuff like that. They have to be brought back to consciousness.
Right.
And for that, attention has to be put on it. And that means energy has to be spent on that.
Right.
And that's where
And
people,
that's where
they don't want to do the work.
Yeah.
They don't want to spend the energy, because then the diva brain can get into it,
comes
the
in.
default mode network, all that stuff.
And then
Like, let's not go there.
that takes a lot of work to get through all those stages.
Right. And so, but how do we approach it? We make the easiest way to spend energy on it is through exercise, because it's
Right.
something to push.
Yeah.
But so now the question would be like, all right, so you push the sled. Now push yourself while being against the sled.
Against the sled, yeah.
Yeah.
That explains all the bottom-up expressions that we keep having people go
And
through.
that's why
'cause I just-
sometimes they start crying,
Right.
because suddenly they had a few more steps, and it wasn't about the sled anymore. It was like,
about-
I need to
it's me.
take a few more steps.
Right.
It's not I need to push the sled further. It's I need to take a few more steps. And now you're looking inside. And the second you do that,
It
boom,
blows up. Yeah.
the dam explodes.
Right.
Because you moved yourself,
Yeah.
finally. And I think that's why the sled is the best way in a way, is because we get to that stage where those 3 steps, it's not about the sled anymore. You're going to have to look
It's-
inside,
right.
because you want to quit. And the only way you're not going to quit is by having that conversation with yourself of like, nah, dude, 3 more steps.
Right.
That's beyond the
So
question.
as things are being brought up into the consciousness, essentially it's deciding how much the higher brain function.
Right.
So basically it's the gatekeeper of what should come to
Yes,
consciousness.
that's what the amygdala is. That fifth hierarchy
fifth
seems to
hierarchy,
be that. Yeah.
Okay.
Because time is a factor.
Right.
Because the longer term the decision needs to be, the higher on the hierarchy it is. Because sometimes you have to think 2 years from now. You have a baby on the way.
Right.
That's 5 months from now. That's a higher.
That's a
Monkey cannot do that.
right.
We have it because we can think further. But to do that, you need to be safe, because you can't worry about your body right now.
Right.
If your hip was still crushed and hurting, you would worry about the baby's safety less.
And
Because you'd
more-
be like, well, I need to survive
Before
to
anything
help
else,
the baby.
yeah.
I need to survive first. So there's always that game that is
Okay.
played continuously. And the more the lower hierarchies take over, the less long-term you can go.
Okay.
And so when people
So the
actually
more
understand-
primal you basically become. of
So
sorts, the more
rape.
short term. Yeah.
rape, like you had to fucking worry about surviving this
There. Yeah.
in a world where you never had to do it. So you
Right.
could see, like in a software we live in, rape would be one of the greatest threats, because murder, you don't see it coming.
Right.
It's more someone torturing you before they murder you. That's
Right.
what rape is.
Yeah.
And so imagine the impact he had on you, saying like, so I can die at any moment. Die at any moment means, yes, you're going to be very present, except in that moment you don't want that.
Yeah.
But then after that, you're going to have to go back to long term. But how can I go long term if at any moment I can
They
die?
can- right.
That's you on the mountain, that's me on the bridge. That's it forces you to readjust a lot of stuff where you need to understand long term, but you also need the short term. And there's that back and forth. You were never as present as on the mountain.
Right.
Just me on the bridge. That's the moment that I still remember, like it was a life and death situation, because it was.
Yeah.
That's probably why you see the change in personality in life or death situation, because at that moment, your attention is purely into that moment, because otherwise you die.
Right. Yeah. I like it.
So it's a profound change of where the attention goes.
Right.
And at that moment, life and death, you have to look at you, because there's
nothing else.
Because on the mountain, like there's that moment where you look at the stone, right?
Right.
But there's a moment after.
Yeah.
And you remember both. But the stone, you looked at the stone, and then after that it was you.
Right.
And once it was all on you, you had to for once bring a full attention to yourself, and that's why it changed you so much.
Right. Yeah. That's awesome.
It's interesting.
I like it.
So I'm going to look at people moving completely differently in a way when they do carries.
Well, because that's and that's been an interesting thing, because I feel like it's been the last 9 months to a year where I just look at them as they're moving, but I can tell when they're there and when they're not.
And they're not.
It's like when I was working with Amy in St. Paul, I was like, hey, zone in. And she's like, I am. I was like, you're not. Zone in. And she's like, how can you tell? I was like, I can just see it. Like exactly. I can see exactly when.
So, because I was looking at that on the farmers, watching people do farmers, like you're carrying the farmers. You're not moving.
You're not moving.
You're just carrying the stuff. So therefore, you're not present, not where I need you to be present.
Right.
But that's what they say, but I am, because I can feel the farmers. I'm like, but that's not what I want you to feel.
Right.
You're carrying the farmers.
I need you to feel you.
I want you to feel you, but that's the thing. So hang on to the farmers and then forget the farmers.
Right.
Don't feel the farmers.
Yeah.
If it's automated enough, you won't feel them anymore.
Right.
You just move you. It's going to be a little bit harder.
Right.
Who gives a shit?
Which is what, and that's like something I always say. I'm like, find pleasure in the pain, because that's you finding that muscle that you're looking for, and you fuel it as much as you can.
Bench pressing. What is my favorite exercise when it comes to that? Push up with weights.
Right.
Because I'm moving myself.
Yourself, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
That's so interesting.
But I feel like I move myself with the bench.
Right, because you probably move away from it. Right.
Yeah, because I feel like I become one with the bench.
Right, exactly. So what you have now is that balance of internal torque, external torque. Yeah, you push yourself from the weight, but you still have conscious of the weight.
Yeah.
Which me, the second there's a weight, I don't like when there's a weight. So maybe that's me. Not with that authority stuff. Like I don't like when
the weight telling you
what to do.
You will not tell me what to do, weight.
Yes, exactly. But it's that. Whereas if I have something on my back, I'm moving me. You just can't stop me.
Right.
So the approach is different.
It's different, yeah.
I love when I weigh weight on my back, because I'm moving anyway, which is how I see the world.
Right.
No matter how much you pile on me, I'll do what I want.
Right.
The weight is different. I have to move the weight. And I'm like, fuck you, I don't have to move you, because you don't get to tell me what to do.
Right. And I like to dominate the weight.
Because you like to tell it what to do.
Yeah.
I don't like when someone tells me what to do. But you could see the different approach to it, and you can see why
training would be different,
Kickboxing, jiu-jitsu, it's always that. It's like you cannot make me do what I don't want to do. Jiu-jitsu.
Right.
No. I'm going to go that way. I'm going to find a way, because you don't get to tell me what to do or not to do.
Right. Yeah, and I have a totally different approach to it.
But you see me on everything. I was like, no, I just said I was going to do it. I'm going to do it. And I don't care what the world says.
Yeah.
It has no effect on what I do or not.
Right.
But you could see how it affects me on the exercise then.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Or we can look at it completely differently. Yeah.
The training would be different depending on who you're working with.
Completely different. So we can get both very strong at bench, but I would do it with weight on my back versus you benching the weight.
Yeah.
We won't apply exactly the same, but we both get strong at pressing. Let's put it this way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you know what? The dumbbell, because I move under it.
Right. Yeah.
Regardless.
I fucking hate
I'm here.
Hate
and I just get, But so you like to press the log. Me, I'm like, I don't want to deal with the log. Like, I don't deal with shit. I do me. You do you. I do me.
Yeah.
So I see the log and I'm like, why do I need to press this? Like, you're telling me what to do in a way.
Right.
I don't like it. But the dumbbell is like, you make it as difficult as you want, and I'm still going to get under it.
Right.
Because I move me.
Yeah.
But I'm not moving you. Because I'm not spending my energy on you.
Right.
It's funny, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great philosophical view of different training principles, right? So different modalities.
Is that what athleticism is? Static versus moving.
Right.
I'm starting to wonder.
Yeah,
look how strong Janina is statically.
Right.
She power clean 80 kilos at 17.
Yeah.
She hits the ground really hard. But I'm like, but me, I was the opposite. I was the just ridiculous athlete. But as long as it came to moving myself, statically, I suck.
Right. Yeah, but you would want to go to kickboxing to learn to kick. I want to go to kickboxing to kick the shit out of somebody.
Right, exactly. No interest.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, I'll take your head off because. But that's the thing is, if I get into fight, I'll take your head off. But to remove you from telling me what to do.
Right.
But at the same time, I have no desire to do it. That's why I don't like competitions, probably, because I'm like, I'm not going to put myself into that situation. But if you come at me, I'll take your head off.
Right.
Because you're not going to tell me what to do.
Yeah.
So you could see, but then that would make programming
so much more fun.
easier.
Yeah.
So much more fun.
Yeah.
Because now I know what I'm going to do. I'm just fucking carries. I'm going to do pull up with weight, push up with, I'm going to move me with weight.
With weight, yeah.
So I can do all my gymnastic stuff, but with weight and still get as strong as I want to be.
Yeah.
Oh.
That's awesome.
I know. That should be fun.
Yeah, I like it.
You're going to watch these videos 6 times? And yeah.
It's a whole lot, guys. It's a whole lot. It's a lot to process, but that's a really cool concept.
Yeah.
I like how it all just starts to tie in more and more, just like different depths and depths and depths and depths.
Like that internal talk versus looking inside and stuff. Like that one the other day, I was like, oh.
But it makes so much sense.
Right, that's what we saw.
Well, because and it's also such an like when I talk about like the motion mapping, at least my view of the most of those IT muscles, the structural muscles, are so efferent that if you don't look inward, you don't know if you're using them or not, right? Which is the pec and the bicep we were talking when you're in the boxing.
You have to fucking
unless you're focusing on it,
unless you're in it,
the leverage can handle the load because you're trying to dominate the outside world. Same with the baseball as a pitch. Like you're trying to throw the object. You're not trying to generate the movement as powerfully as.
But if you remember Mark Maguire saying like the one he hit the furthest is when he hit through the ball.
Right. Yeah.
He wasn't aiming for the ball. He just swung.
Right.
He didn't even feel the stuff and
it went. Yeah. That's awesome.
There's this entire thing there. The more nervous you are, the harder it becomes.
Right.
Because now you have to focus on the outside world. So if you look great athletes, they use that stress to actually go inward.
Right.
Attention.
Yeah. Which if you guys see the interview with Levy, that's exactly what he's talking about when he's in the ring. He's like, I don't see the world. I don't see anything. Like it's just me and I can hear the voices of my coaches, but it's just me trying to go through the...
So depending on who you are in that case, is he destroying the other guy or is simply kick?
Right.
And the guy happens to be in the way.
Yeah. That's awesome.
So maybe you throw a high kick and you happen to catch. Are you taking the guy's head off?
Right.
So maybe depending on who you are, you should look at it that way.
Right.
So me, I can never kick someone. I can just kick and you happen to be in the way.
Yeah.
Which is, with Paul, so can you imagine how much the approach would change everything?
Yeah.
So that makes sense. Approach is everything. Intent is everything.
Well, it's what we've always said. Don't teach the squat. Teach the person to squat.
And so intent is everything?
Yeah.
Oh.
Again.
That's going to be another layer to that one. Yep.
Awesome. We'll cut it off there, guys. Have a good one. Subscribe. Click all over the place. Sign up for everything. What was the other one? Let's sign up. Nutrition. Oh, we have the nutrition group coming up, guys. I think that one's already going to be started.
No, it might be already.
Just pay attention to our Instagram and our YouTube and everything and subscribe. And Johnny Walker, listen, I'm always welcome to some bottles
of whiskey.
Of awesomeness. I'm willing to work for nice bottles of whiskey, guys. Hit us up. Send us some emails. Let's do it up. Have a good one, guys. Take care.